Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. Welcome back to Resiliency Redefined. On today's episode, I feel so fortunate to be able to interview two Canadian legends, the one and only Cat and Nat. These are two women, entrepreneurs, parents, like they are all the things and really show us the power of community and this idea of how we can show up for ourselves, our communities, our family systems in a pretty fun, well way. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Resiliency Redefined with Cat and Nat. My friends, welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I know I say this sometimes like this is going to be fun, but like buckle up. I can't believe that we have Cat and Nat, Canadian legends, on the podcast this day. I'm so glad that you're both here. Thank you so much for making time of this.
Of course, anytime for you.
You're
Oh,
like the epitome of everything, your resilience, your hard work, everything. You're such an inspiration for us too.
well, bless your hearts. Well, my friends, I have so many questions that I am so curious to ask you before we dive into some of those questions. For folks who might have not had the opportunity yet to learn all about you and the great work, could you give us just a little snapshot about who you are, the great work that you do, and just all things that are Cat and Nat?
This is such a Nat question, so take it away, Nat.
All the things that we do. Oh my
You
gosh.
got this one, girl.
Oh my gosh.
But my dad was like, "What do you do?" Like I
Oh,
was into a visit him in his house, like his retirement residence. He's like, "If I was to explain what
I
you do, what
know.
do you do?" And I was like, "Huh?" He's
Mm.
80, so to explain to his friends, I was like,
Oh,
"Well,
that is tricky.
this is tricky."
Importing, exporting.
Yeah, I think, mostly we started as a community in real life
Yeah.
and found that people were like, I want you in my city. This was 12
Yes.
years or 13,
Mhm.
13 years ago now. And we took it to online before online was a thing
Yep.
and grew a community online. And we share content sort of about our daily lives as
Yes.
moms, as women, as friends, and what it's like. It's really just our journey in life, sharing the realities of the ups, the downs,
Yep.
and trying to find fun and joy along the way, and then offshoots of whatever comes,
Mm.
some books, some a
Yep.
podcast, like, we roll over
Yeah.
here. We kind of dive into everything and anything. Some things work out, some things don't,
Yeah.
and we are here with you now.
I love this. I love that introduction. And yes, and you're being very, very humble. Like for folks, oh my goodness, these women literally create safe spaces for people to say, like, wow, this is kind of hard and you don't have to do it alone. And creating that connection and that community. And I think what I see so often in your work is this amazing the amazing value of like connection, belonging, but also that recognition that when you do it together, it does actually become lighter work. Like it's
Yeah,
one of those things of, you're to me, you're like the modern example of it takes a village, right? 7 children between the two of you, families, partners, pets, soccer, all the things, right? I know there's hockey in your world. Like there are so many different parts, and you do it with just this vulnerability in such a way that like makes it realize like we're not alone as mothers, as you said, as women, as community members, which is just
yeah.
remarkable. And you're just such a voice for Canadians and beyond, which is awesome.
And as you get older, it gets harder to share the journey
Mhm.
because your
Mhm.
kids are older. So you actually do feel more isolated when you're older
Yes.
or when your kids are older, because it's their story too. So it
Yes.
becomes this balance of, it's not a one size fit all. Like a toddler, your teenager is very different, and the struggles are different. So it's like it's a curious balance between sharing and preserving their
Mhm.
lives, but also understanding that everyone's got something going on
Oh my
behind
gosh.
closed
And
doors.
every time you talk to a woman, whether it's online or in person, and she shares something that's going on, it's like everyone feels like it's their own unique experience and
Mm.
nobody else is going through it, and they feel a lot of shame and guilt
Yeah.
about what's happening. I just had a conversation yesterday with someone, and she was like, I wish there was tiny little groups where
Yeah.
you, if you were having a specific issue at that time,
Yeah.
you could have this like little anonymous conversation about
Yeah.
it. And she was saying, like right now, I feel like if I don't know the person really well, I don't really feel comfortable talking to people
Yes.
because you feel just like I have so much going on and nobody really understands my
Yeah.
specific situation. You can feel so alone. And I had said like that's literally like Kat and I were going through that when we had babies, but
Yeah.
we were together every day, and we were like had no judgment. We could share. And then when we started sharing online, it's like that same thing. And you're so right. The more people that you talk to, the more women who can be open,
Yeah.
you feel safety, and you feel community, and you can feel a lot more protected than if you're doing it all by yourself on an island.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that that's what you have created. And I also like the entrepreneurial component of me loves that this is the way you make your livelihood. Like that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like I
Yeah.
love when our like we are able to like do what we're able to do, right? Like you're able to build community. You have this amazing gift of communication, which you again you demonstrate in your books, on your podcast, in your shows, and all the content. And also too, it's like you're able to do that while raising healthy families, and you're also able to make a livelihood of it. Like I think that is just something that is just so extraordinary when you find your thing, and then that's what you get to do, and this is how you get to spend your days, which is a pretty amazing piece.
It
So
sounds like a
So
lot, but
it's
it's great.
it's so true
yeah,
though, like because you think about the majority of people, you have to do a job, you have to
yeah,
make money, right? And if you
yeah,
get lucky enough to love what you do and just you get to be yourself, and then it becomes your job. Like I always say when I meet someone, they're like, I love my job.
yeah,
I'm like, you are so lucky.
Yeah.
yes,
I hope it, not right away, but eventually that all my kids can be doing something that they love, and it doesn't feel
yeah.
like work because they just enjoy every part of it.
Yeah, and what I really love is what I see as an example that you're doing in terms of your business, because ultimately it's like, yes, it's beautiful things, but you have this awesome, like in parallel, well, this is my life and this is our business. What I love that you're doing is that, so I think so many people, they very much work in isolation and it feels very disconnected, right? Whether it's like, at 8:30 to 4:30, 9 to 5, and then it's like, okay, that's the work part. Now here's the life part. And this is where I try to fit all the other things in. And one of the gentle invitations I often say to folks is like, you need friends at work because our
Mm.
evenings and our weekends aren't long enough. And they are so busy with all of the other pieces that we want you to have connection at work because it makes, again, as you said, it's like you can enjoy it in a different way. And even being able to sit in a meeting and you have like kind of that ally in the room and somebody says something that's ridiculous, just knowing that you can like make eye contact with
Yeah.
them, right? Like you can kind
Yeah.
of look over, roll your eyes and be like, oh, versus sitting there by yourself carrying all of that and having no one to like work it through with. So again,
Yes.
I think we're
So true.
what we're seeing is just like the value of friendship and connection and also the power of like specifically like women connection. And
Mm.
I think that again, it's so isolating if we don't reach out. And there's so many misconceptions, I think, about women's friendships
Mhm.
that it's like we're kind of friends, but we're not really. We're like
Mhm.
secretly competing with each other. And one of the ideas I would love to get your thoughts on is I often talk about like women at the top are collaborating and women at the
Mhm.
bottom are competing against each other.
Mm.
Right? Like the women at the top, we
Yeah.
wanna see each other win. I want to see you win. I want your world tour to happen. I want the Cat and Nat era to be coming out. And I think this idea is like we want to celebrate other people. And to me, it's the win, win, win. And my curiosity for you is there is competition, of course. But how do you think we can help people see that like there's so much to go around, that you can be you, you can do your thing. Like we don't have to have this like misconception about the fact that women can't get along.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I always say, I think that sometimes people confuse the feeling of like they think it's I'm jealous, but really if they just are to like, just rethink about it, it's more like often I'm inspired, right?
Yes.
So it's a say, like it's this, that person is doing something that you like,
Yeah.
and you can either be negative and jealous about it, or
Yeah.
you can be inspired by it. And then also, it was women in the beginning for us that would
Mhm.
like successful women who took time out of their day to come meet
Yes.
us for coffee. We would pick their brain. They would ask us questions, and whenever we asked these women, they would always just say yes.
Yeah.
And so many of those conversations opened doors
Yeah.
for us. And also we said, when there was people who'd be like, oh, I want to kind of do what you do, but I feel like it's either too late or there's too many people doing it.
Mhm.
And we were just like, there's no two people are exactly the same.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you start tomorrow, if she starts tomorrow and she does exactly what we're doing, if she's being herself, she's got something different that's going to resonate with other people.
Yes.
There's like not just one, maybe except for Taylor Swift, there's not just one person that
Yeah.
everybody loves,
Yeah.
and can relate to. It's like
Yeah.
we all have something different to share. Just be your unique self, and you there will be people who resonate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I what that reminds me of, thank you for that kind of snapshot. What it reminds me of is when somebody said recently, "Robyne, you don't get mad when people like take your content or people try to
Mhm.
like replicate it or do it." And what I look at is exactly what you're just saying. It's like they'll never do it exactly like I do it, right? Like I have
Yeah.
my own little mashup, this like charcuterie board of some side of trauma, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They're never going to be able to deliver it or show it or execute it the same way. So it's like, go ahead. Like, go ahead.
Yeah.
Like I've lost that need to like kind of control that this is what I do. This is my lane. It's like, yeah, go right ahead. There's plenty to go around.
I
Yeah.
And
think there's also so much content now for people to
yeah.
consume that it's like a niche or being yourself is unique because
Mhm.
everyone is trying to do a formula rather than a lot of these people are growing up with performance, right? They
Yes.
perform, they it's like I feel badly for them because it's a way they think they know what people want to see rather
Yeah.
than
Mm.
being who they are because they don't know who they are because they've always performed
Mhm.
for online.
Yeah.
So I think we're really lucky that was never our goal and we didn't ever do that. We got to grow up like as women and then share versus trying to like hack an algorithm
Yes.
because that's what people want. And I think really what you're talking about in terms of like women seeing other women is we forget what our main mission is or
Mhm.
people do in the communities and they begin to try to chase success or
Yeah.
likes or views or whatever it is and you can just like dial back into why you're doing what you do. I think it's what breed success rather than watching what everyone else is doing. And like quite frankly, we're too busy doing
Yes.
ourselves to watch what everyone else is doing. And that's not a slight
Yeah.
to anyone. It's just
Yeah.
we don't have time to look at what people may be doing like us.
Yeah.
There's no time.
Yeah.
So, that's just
Yeah.
part of, you know, um, the community of that you live in. A lot of the women we collaborate with are also too busy doing their own thing to
Mhm.
try to be someone else.
Yeah, I love that. So very well said. Now, another question I have, and again, I just appreciate you both so much for what you do and the content and how you do this and how you've built this. A curiosity that I personally have, I know other people have submitted questions, but this was like a Robin question is
Mhm.
when you are so like open and learning and journeying and all the things you're doing, could you how do you navigate boundaries in terms of figuring out like what's that kind of idea of like what I share, what I choose not to share, or the fact that I'm sure when people meet you, they all want you to be their best friends. They're like, we
Mm.
want to be the third person in this amazing duo, right? Everyone wants to be your best friend. You want to be of service, you want to help, you're sharing, you're building this place. And at the end of the day, you both have your own lives outside of the brand Cat and Nat. So I'm just so curious about how you navigate boundaries or just again, how do you stick handle all the different parts?
You know what's so weird is we've never had to answer this question between the two of
Interesting.
us, and we've
Ooh,
never had to think about what the boundary is.
yeah.
Again, I think when you develop outside of who people want you to be and you just are who you are,
Mhm,
that's not something you have to think about because you know what feels right and what feels wrong
mhm,
and you don't have to question that
mhm.
whatsoever. We know our kids, we know their boundaries,
Yeah,
we know our relationships, we know their boundaries, they know us. We're not someone different online and we're not
yeah,
someone different in our houses. So, boundaries for us, aren't a topic because it's like you just know.
Mhm.
It's funny when you said that, asked that, I was thinking the exact same thing as
Yeah.
her. Like in the very beginning, let's say if it was like even if it was like working with a brand,
Yeah.
we immediately, just the two of us, we just knew it was
Yeah.
like a yes or a no. And then as far as sharing it, like, yeah, it just comes just so authentic. We
Mhm.
just know, we don't have to talk about it. But and then I thought to myself, but you're looking for advice for someone else. I was like, okay, so if I dig deep, what is it? I think our boundaries are
It's a
that
feeling.
it's a feeling, but also that we respect the other people in our lives,
Yes.
whether it's our extended family, our husbands, our, like, all of that. And I think that if we just continue to naturally have respect
Yeah.
for privacy,
Mhm.
then it's really not something that we need to talk
You
about.
Yeah.
I think boundaries become an issue now because of why you're sharing content. And I think,
Right.
I mean, if it's online or if it's in real life, like you're moving boundaries for someone else. Not,
Mhm.
you know very well when your boundary has been crossed, and it's
Yeah.
what you do with it. That everyone knows that feeling,
Mhm.
and or when you're saying yes and you didn't want to, that feeling of like, ugh, is a boundary. And I think that that takes courage to learn your boundary, and then it also takes courage to push your boundary, because
Yeah.
some people have boundaries that are too tight and
Yes.
that's comfortable for them rather than pushing boundaries. So boundaries aren't bad or good, they're just it's a process of learning who you are,
Mhm.
so that you know the feeling right away of like, I can say yes to this and this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to say yes to it. Or, especially raising kids, that
Yeah.
feeling of when you're like, you got to push your boundary here,
Yeah.
like, I know you want to say no, but think about the boundary, good boundary versus like someone's crossing my boundary
Yeah.
negatively. And I think that, as you grow up and hopefully everyone learns about themselves, boundaries become more of a feeling
Yeah.
rather than a statement.
You
Yeah.
know what happens sometimes? We'll be like podcasting with someone and we're having like a great conversation, and like it's so easy to just feel comfortable with another woman. Like if
Yeah.
it's just clicking, you're just going, right? And you're just talking. And when we get the note back like later that her team needs you to take this and this and this out, it's like, because they have rules, because they
Right.
like, because this is a serious job and there's
Yeah.
like things that are private. And people always say to us like, hey, well, if there's anything you ever want to take out after, like, just let us know. We're like, never. Like, I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
We're
We
the
only take
boss.
out like a location. If we say
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
like a school, or that's the only
Yeah.
thing we take out, that's a
Mhm.
firm boundary, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
like never a
And
thought.
we respect when we have to take things out for people
Yeah.
on
Of
their
course.
team, but it's like, it's too bad that, like, that authentic thing that she said, that if she didn't
Yes.
have like people watching over the brand,
Yes.
it's too bad she can't just be herself like we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that, and thank you for going there and explaining that. And what I'm hearing and I'm taking from what you shared is that because you listen to your intuition, because you know who you are and you know who you are not, you know what you stand for, you know what you believe in. Like you've gotten such you've developed your sense of self so strongly, even in a dynamic duo, right? Like you both know what matters most, and then again you can listen to that intuition. And when you're showing up value aligned and you're showing up authentic, you don't have to censor yourself, because you're like, you know what, part of this is part of what I do. And, I'm happy to say it out loud. I'm also happy to say it behind a closed door. And again, it's that authenticity piece, which just comes through crystal clear with you both in the work that you do. And I also just really love the idea that we're reinforcing for people who are listening. It's like, it's okay to trust your intuition. It's
Yeah.
totally okay, and I can share with you, I remember a little while ago, so Ava now, so I have the 3 teenagers, Ava's my middleest, she's now 19, and I remember her being a wee bit younger, and we were walking downtown Toronto, and there was an unhomed person, which is cool,
Mhm.
like, no big deal, and he came, like, towards us, and, Ava said, "You need to back off," and, like, she was so assertive, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, like, Eva, that was so rude." And so I kinda, like, pulled her aside, like, we kept walking, and then afterwards, I'm like, "Eva, like, that was so rude." And she's like, "Oh, no, I did not feel safe, and I will not let anyone." She's like, "Mom, what? To be polite? I have to, like, put my safety aside to be polite?" She's like, "Hell no." And I
I
was just
love the
like,
younger generation. They are all
Yes,
so
and
like
these
that.
girls, they're
yeah,
so strong. But what you're
yes,
saying right there is like, so often something bad will happen because we, as girls, don't want to be impolite, or we don't
Yes.
want to make a scene, and she's already that for her
Yeah.
that's not, she doesn't even have
Nope.
that worry, that armor of like the care of the world. She's like, I'm protecting myself right now.
Yeah. And I just again, but I remember again, you're totally right. Like my kind of first reaction was just like, "Oh my gosh, don't be impolite, don't be rude, like don't cause." And for her, she was just like, "I will say whatever I have to say." Like because like no, I'm not going to be in a situation where I'm not comfortable. And again, just I love that as you said, the next generation are growing up with like really that sense of empowerment. And again, I
Mhm,
think we create safe places for the kids to be able to know that they can speak
mhm,
up. But
mhm.
I'm very encouraged. And I know right now, like a lot of folks are just like, oh, teenagers, they're going to hell in a handbasket and they're always on devices and like, oh, the world, I have so much hope when I spend time with teenagers. Like I have
Yeah.
so much hope. I love, and I also feel the same when I spend time with school agers, right? Like when we look at what they're thinking about, conversations they're having, like, yeah, there's obviously lots of stressors and lots of challenges, not to undermine how hard it
Mhm,
is to be a teenager. And in parallel, like,
mhm.
they're these, like, fierce little warriors that are
Mhm.
willing to do things differently because, like, they're ready for change.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Robin, when you say that, it's like for Kat and I, we've always like obviously we like you just said, like parenting is hard. There's
Yeah.
so much, it's so heavy. There's so many like hard times. But Kat and I like kids, and we
Mhm.
like teenagers, like we
Yes.
enjoy them. I It's sort of like how like old people are really interesting to talk to, and then
Yeah.
young people's
Yes.
perspectives and like just their view on the world and talking to them is so interesting. And so much of what we do outside of just like making a community for moms is we also want to enjoy parenthood,
Yes.
and we want to have fun with our kids, and we want them to see us happy
Yeah.
and joyful, and create like a house that's fun.
Yeah.
And when when our kids were little, we needed that space away from the kids
Yeah.
so that we could find our joy.
Yeah.
And then when the kids are getting older, and there is heavy things like the idea of all of like the all the devices and the
Yeah.
phones and all of this like talk around like doomsday,
Yeah.
we were like, we don't want to spend all of our moments um like
In fear.
in fear
Yeah.
of what's going to happen, of this terrible world that we have put our children into. So
Yes.
we wanted like when we started the common parent, and well, we can talk about the screen sense guide, but it was because we learned things that we wanted to share with the community, but it was also because we don't want to hate our kids and be like like
Yeah.
constantly combating them to tell them to get off their thing and this is going
Yeah.
to be the end of the world. How can we find a way where we can be in like more harmony with our
Yeah.
kids around these things, and we can be able to still have fun because parents are
Yeah.
so stressed about this.
100%. I absolutely echo that. And again, I love the resource that you have created. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes for families and communities that are looking for some support and some ideas around screen use. So thank you so much for putting that out in the world. And I just really want to pull that thread about like enjoying parenthood. Like I personally like absolutely love being a mom. Like it is by far the most like it is like the hardest thing I've ever done. It is also by far the most rewarding thing. And again, I feel like it's like so often we're like, "Oh gosh, you're teenagers, teenager years." And one of my kind of personal missions is to like when I have and I'm in community and talking to school age parents to be like, oh my gosh, like you get to be a parent of a teenager. It's going to be a trip. Like it is my favorite season. Like these are some of the things that I do with my teenagers that I think really kind of paid off, so to speak. And like
Right.
I try to get people hyped about teenagers because they are so special. Like it feels like there's this, if we're not careful, this is like a group of development where it's like, little ones are super cute and adorable. And then like, adults, that's their own thing. And it's like this lost group where like, nope,
Yeah.
if you walk up to a convenience store and there's a big group of teenagers hanging out front, people aren't like, oh, awesome. I get to see teenagers in the
Yeah,
wild, right? It's
totally.
like, oh, those kids these days. Whereas
Yeah.
I feel this lost group is like, no, there's just so much hope and excitement and joy if we get hyped up about getting to be
Mhm.
parents of teenagers.
Yeah, and in this teenage age, it's like it's the time when they start saying things that they're teaching you stuff that you didn't
Yes.
know, and it could be about like light things like
6, 7?
just
6, 7?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit that they're teaching us about. But then sometimes they're also like, they'll come out with like a perspective,
Yes.
that you kind of are
Or
like,
call you out on something and you're
yes.
like, or like,
Yeah.
a mood, or like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're very intuitive to you as
Yeah.
well. Like
Yeah.
they do hold you accountable and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So they are it's I and for everyone who doesn't enjoy it, I think that parenthood is a season and not everyone loves every season, and I
Yeah.
think that's
Fair.
okay because I think there's a lot of stress to find the joy, and I think some people do have a really hard season with
Yeah.
certain kids with mental health and with kids who don't want to go to school, or
Yeah.
kids who are there's a lot of stress about keeping your kid on track, and
Yeah.
I do know that you look at other people and you're like, why can't it just be like that?
Hmm.
But I think that the hard season will lead to a different adult, and
Yeah.
everyone has to go sort of through a hard season in order to find who they are, whatever that is. And I think that some
And there could
kids
be multiple of
and
those.
yes, and
Yes.
some kids do it earlier and some kids
Yeah.
do it later. And, nothing's straightforward and perfect. So when you hear us say we find joy,
Yeah.
there's lots of stress as well. But the
Yeah.
joy we weave in between is what we try to like hold on to, because it's easy to get lost in the minutia of
Yeah.
every day and the fire hose you drink from in
Yes.
trying to raise kids. So
Yeah.
I think when we say find joy, you really do have to carve it out.
Yes.
Um, like the other day, I took them all for ice cream. It was like Friday night. I'm like, get in the car, let's go. It was great on the way there. The
Yeah.
ice cream was great. On
Yeah.
the way
Yeah.
home, I was ready for them all to walk home. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it
So
was
Absolutely.
great
yes.
75% of the time.
Yes.
The 25
Yeah.
was like, I am never doing this again. But no,
Yeah.
you do it again. So it's
Of
like
course you do.
they say 80-20. I'm like 75-25.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that moment where everyone's kind of sitting in the same room and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, look at all my grown family sitting here.
Yeah.
10 seconds later,
Yeah.
they're like swearing at each other,
Yes.
attacking each other. And
Yes.
I'm literally like, everybody, like, get out of the house or I'm
Yes.
leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just wanted to
I
highlight
love
it's
that.
not all
Yeah.
sunshine and
Yeah.
rainbows, but it is 75% amazing.
Yeah. And again, what I love that you're showing is this idea that, and again, I absolutely agree. It's hard work and there are moments and again, recently I was asked by a mother who was navigating a very, very complex situation with their teenager. And she said to me, like, Robin, like, I don't know, like when do I need outside help? Like, when do I do
Mhm.
this? Like, I'm feeling so overwhelmed and it just, I don't know what to do. And I said to her, I said, the rule of thumb that I've always used is that, like, if you ever feel scared, and there's like a
Mhm.
difference with being worried, being a bit anxious, about being concerned, but like as a guardian, as a grown up in a teenager's life, if there is ever a point where all of a sudden it's like, I feel scared right now,
Mhm.
that's when you want to make sure that we get resources immediately, right?
That's
So like,
great advice.
Yeah.
just like if you're ever in that moment where you're like that bedroom door closes or X happens and I feel fear, and
Mm.
fear is different again than anxiety, worry,
Mhm.
like, that
Yeah.
acute nervous
Annoyingness.
system, annoyingness, like, walk homeness, right? Like all of the things.
It's like the equivalent to when you hear their cry, and it's when
Yes.
they're little, and
Yes.
that cry, you
Yeah.
know right away, because everyone's like, well, how will I know? And I
Yeah.
feel like every mom knows that cry when they're
Yes.
hurt versus when they're crying.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, it
Touch
is.
wood,
Yeah.
we haven't got there yet, but
Yeah.
that cry, it's the cry, but it's
Yeah.
not the cry. It's the
Yes.
Exactly.
behavior where you're like, I know this isn't right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And
Yeah.
that's like it is. And if you listen to it, then like, you'll know.
Yeah.
Like example, the kids are all like WrestleMania in the basement.
Yes.
And my one is on the ground and they all come up and they're like, he's really hurt.
Yes.
And I can hear the sounds he's making. And I'm like, I'm not even going to check. They're like, you're so mean. I'm like, I know the sound.
Yes.
And that ain't it.
Yeah,
He's faking.
absolutely. Yeah. So again, I really appreciate you like bringing that to the forefront, that like here we are being like, oh, teenagerhood. It's such a, merry time. It is very overwhelming and scary for some families and some groups. And so again, if that one little takeaway for folks is, again, if you feel scared, right? Like if you
Yeah.
feel, as you just identified, that like very intuitive knowing that like, no, this isn't okay. That's when we jump in and we figure out and we just get loud and we find ways to get our kids the services and the
Support.
supports. And you're not alone. You are
Yeah.
Mm.
absolutely not alone. And again, so I appreciate that reframe. Another curiosity, if it's okay, I'm thinking about is, I really want to address what you said about like we want to make sure that we're like setting kids up for the future, right? Like there's this pressure that we have to like make sure that we're putting them on the right path because, if we're not, if we don't get all of the things right, we're going to end up with, all of these, dysfunctional adults and we're doing all these things for these kids. And I think one of the pieces that I can share, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, is that realizing I think as you get closer to when they're going into like emerging adulthood as they get a wee bit older, you realize that like this really isn't going to come down to one thing. Right. Like this is
Mhm,
not going to come down to like that one test or that one hockey team or that
mhm,
one opportunity. It is like this, like, again, this constellation of so many different things. And then all of a sudden it seems like the pressure comes off a little bit. But when
mm,
they're little, I feel like there's this big pressure that we got to get everything right because if
mm,
not, we're going to have these big consequences. But as again, even with mine as older, I'm starting to see like, oh gosh, this was never just one thing. This was just a
mm,
series of how do we show up? How do we do relationship repair? How do we kind of navigate some of this? And so I'm just kind of curious about what your thoughts are as your children are growing and that pressure that we got to keep them on the right track. Recognizing, kind of what your thoughts are about how
mm.
as parents we can show up for that.
You know what I can equate it to is like I when I let's just say a kid wants to quit a sport,
Yes.
and like when they're younger, for parents listening, like, and you think to yourself, okay, if you quit this because of how things work, you're not going to be able to catch up or go back.
Yeah.
So is it a moment? Is this is this for real? Like, do you hate this, or are you just not liking this phase, or you don't like, what is it you don't, you're trying to figure out what it is
Yeah.
they don't like about it. And
Yeah.
it's like you want to trust them, but they're too young
Mhm.
to really know the grand consequences of what they're doing. So you're constantly trying to like peel away what is the root of what you're dealing with right
Yeah.
now. And I feel like when you talk about the right path, it's like your kids will hand you a different turn every single time you think you have them figured out. You're
Yes.
like, oh, they're like this. Then they take a right or a left turn, and you're like, whoa, that's not who I thought you were. Right? That's what they do. And so when we talk about the right path, I think the right path is not your path, and you don't know their path because they're on their path. And
Mhm.
it's like when you just try to help them see a bigger picture. And I have a very strong daughter who will talk in like she knows,
Yes.
right? Like, and she'll be like, you don't know me. And I'm like, you're right. I don't know you,
Yeah.
but I know me. And what I'm trying to, I am your parent trying to show you a bigger picture. And that's my job, is to show you a
Yeah.
bigger picture. Doesn't mean it's your picture, but I'm
Mhm.
going to show it to you because that's how I parent you. And it's like, you can't change you can't change their path, but you can show them four roads they can take.
Yes.
They're going to ultimately take the road they want to take, but it's our job to sort of like, not steer them, but show them the
Yeah.
maps. You go onto Waze and it gives you four different
That's
routes.
right.
You kind of have to show, one's always longer.
Mhm.
It's like we'll show them the routes, and without making it be their route, because
Mhm.
they're going to detour if you do that. So it's
Yeah.
just sort of like, I think I don't have any fear of launching them. It's just sort of giving them the maps that they can go through their lives and be like, "Oh, I'm going to choose this route even though I see there's four. I
Yeah.
want this one."
Yeah.
Cool. But at least you see all four routes, and I'm going to show them to you so you know. And then sometimes it's just a hard no. It's a
Yeah.
dead end. You're not going down that. And then sometimes it's like go crazy, right? Like I think it's just this push pull of what you know is going to harm them, what you know they can afford to do, and what is fine. Take your room and go,
Yeah.
and let's see where it ends up. Even though you know where it's going to end up, you
Mhm.
kind of sit back and you're like,
Yeah, you have to experience it yourself.
Yeah.
I sometimes feel, and this is kind of like weird, but I sometimes feel thankful for the example of Kat and I, the way that we grew up,
Mhm.
sort of untraditionally, that's the word, right? Untraditionally, and that we didn't like, I have no problem telling my kids, like, we skipped school and we went and we did some things that were not legal,
Yeah.
and I'm okay to tell you that
Yeah.
because
they're legal now.
they're legal now, and that we took an untraditional path because I feel like Well, what I'm seeing in our world is that the kids are being told this is the way to success.
Yes.
And you need to do this and you need to do, I mean,
Yeah.
these freaking marks that they're like,
Yeah.
now everyone's got 90s. It's like, what? Like, well, we won't talk about our marks, but
Yeah.
our friend, some of our,
Yeah.
very smart friends were was just great with an A.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, and then you go to university. And we're, because of the way that we did it in the path, I'm not, because we've found success, I'm
Yes.
not embarrassed to
Yeah.
tell them. I'm not telling them to go and skip school and smoke
Yes.
weed.
Yeah.
But I'm saying it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like that
Yeah.
to find your way.
Yeah.
And also we're constantly letting them know that, like, you don't need to know
Yeah.
right now, and the world is changing so fast.
Mhm.
Just like take the journey and like learn along the way, but don't put too much pressure on like the end goal.
Correct. That's
Well,
beautiful.
also, I'm like, I equate this whole university journey as the wedding.
Yes.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
your life is the marriage.
Yes.
And so we get the engagement, which is graduation, and
Yeah.
then we have the wedding for 4 years. And we're
Yes.
all so excited about planning the wedding. And then they're left with, unfortunately, a really empty
Mhm.
shell because it doesn't take them where they wanted to go. It's an empty promise,
Yeah.
and it's a stop in the road. It's not the road.
Exactly.
So it's sort of like, but this is what they've worked their whole lives for, or they've
Yeah.
been told to work their, and then it's going to work out, which is not the case. Like parenting is steps, and then it's like, oh, then they have to get a job. Like it's not even just like, oh, school, and you're not chat GPTing yourself through a
Yeah.
job. Like you are
Yeah.
actually having to go do the hard work. So a lot of parenting is a marathon. It is, reframing. It is like switching the way you parent one to the other to the,
Yeah.
like everyone is different and there's no one size fits all. And I think I have a grade 5
Mhm.
and I have a grade 11.
Yeah.
Like what is going to happen between grade 5 and
Mhm.
grade 11 for her,
Mhm.
there might not even be university.
Yeah.
Like in reality.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like this crazy, you can't parent one way, and our parents got away with that.
Yes. Yeah.
We no longer have this luxury
Mhm.
because the world is moving faster in a way that we have to parent through it, which we never ever, our parents didn't have to. They could look to their parents and draw on expertise. We don't have that,
Mhm.
and we don't have the same guidance. We don't, so we almost have to give up that we're experts in the life, because we have to almost be their support and be like, I am here to help you and give you the hard skills that I know, but everything else we have to figure out together, because
Yeah.
that's really what it feels like. And I feel like parenting and all of this is at an all-time low. Like people feel really lost and overwhelmed and confused
Mhm.
and unsure, and I feel like we're afraid to parent
Mhm.
in a way. And I'm like, let's, I think we can all feel it. Everyone's like, I can't do that, my
Yeah.
kid would kill me. I'm like, pardon?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, I think it's just getting back to these basics of what we feel intuitively, of what we know, and not stressing about what the world tells us, and kind of just getting back to knowing your kid rather than assessing them based on an Instagram reel that tells you
Mhm.
they're this and this, and
Yes.
just getting back to like relationships and
Mhm.
like what is right for you and your child,
Yes.
not what Instagram says you need for your GPA.
Yes. Uh, Preach. Yes, 100%. Absolutely. And again, I love what you've captured so many really key ideas there. And what I'm hearing is this idea that like parenting in the season of parenthood has rapidly changed. And before we were essentially setting our kids up for trajectory for potentially two professions. If it
Yeah.
was a young woman, two professions or X, right? It was very clear, and that was how you did it. And you likely would get a job you would stay at for decades. And it was very predictable. Now, uncertainty has become the norm. So we're thinking about like, we want them to be healthy and successful and contributing or whatever it is our goals are for them. But because now there's like infinite possibilities of what they can do and how they're going to be
Yeah.
able to do it, we don't have just that like linear trajectory that we used to, that many of us grew up with, where it was pretty straightforward, right? Like it was
It was
pretty
a script.
straightforward.
It was a script.
Yeah,
We all had scripts.
it
We
was
were
rinse
given
and
a
repeat
script,
for decades.
and you would be successful if you
Yeah.
did ABCD.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now you can do all the things, and
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be successful. There are so many variables outside of your control. And I know personally, one of the things that I've talked to my kiddos about is like, this comes down to just character. Like, this comes down to like your values, right? Be a person who does what they say they're going to do, right? Be a person who follows through, right? And again, just sticking to that integrity piece, the character piece, because if you have those, then you're likely gonna be able to figure the other stuff out. If you know
Work
how to
ethic, right?
yeah,
Like with the
yeah,
showing up. It's
yeah,
basically showing up in your, how are you showing up each
yeah,
day? Are you saying what you
absolutely.
mean and meaning what you say?
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
also being able to listen to that intuition,
Yes,
because I know that there's a lot of adults who still can't hear that, they
yes,
because they're so clouded by the confusion around. But
yeah,
if they can feel their natural intuition and not be influenced, will always be influenced, but like you can really feel your core, the
yeah,
values that we've all put here together in this family, and you
yeah.
can listen to that and stay true. It'll be easier to make decisions along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, that kind of that moral compass, right? Like that
Hmm.
whatever that moral compass looks like. And I also echo that sentiment about the fact that when we're external facing, when we're comparing ourselves, our families, our systems to everybody else, it's just so much noise. And when we like just look and be like, hey, does this work for us? Like, does this
Hmm.
work for us? It's like, yeah, this works for us. And then we're good. We don't have to justify it to anybody else. We don't have to explain it to anybody else. And
Hmm.
what I think is so beautiful and what you've both have illustrated in your own lived example is that you've created like these safe spaces where you guys are good, right? Like what you do in your family systems, in your livelihoods, in your lifestyle, it's like this works for us. And there's so much strength and peace in that idea that it's like I don't have to prove this to anybody. We're good how we do things. And people aren't going to agree and there's always going to be critics and we just hope that those critics aren't in the inner circle, right? Because
Hmm.
that's I
Yeah.
think what
Well,
really
sometimes they're
makes
okay
it
too, right? Like
yeah,
sometimes your critic is like when you can own it, like you're right. Actually,
yeah,
it's good to have those people in your lives too, not
yeah,
always to be critical of you. But
yeah,
I think sometimes my kids will say something, and I'm like, no, it's funny. Nothing's ever your fault. Like
yeah,
everything, it's like,
yeah,
like really, it's like seeing. Sometimes I'm like, two sides to every
yeah,
story here. Let's like look at what your part is and what
yeah,
someone else's part is too, right? Because I think the problem is when we begin to um, put it out there and then online specifically,
yeah,
and then we have a million different opinions of people we don't care about
yeah,
versus people within our
Hmm.
circle
totally.
of who we should actually listen to versus validation of likes and shares.
Yeah,
And that is a real reality of the younger generation is where's your weighted critical thinking, like
yeah.
where are you putting it? Are you putting it online? Are you getting validation from those people or from your family?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what I think about too, that piece about like the accountability comes from the inner circle. Like the person
Yes.
that says like so when I think of kind of like the critic, it is that like, the keyboard warrior, right? Like the person be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe like you let your kids do that or X or whatever." And I'm like, "No, no, you have no say in this."
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
in the inner circle, like, I'm gonna hold you accountable, and that's the piece, right? It's like, anytime even we were just chatting the other day, and, Hunter said, "Mom, one of because he's off at university 3rd year now, and he says, 'Mom, one of the things I realized,' he's like, it's funny how some people, like, think that if you're trying to hold them accountable, it's an attack." And
Mm.
he's like like, "Dude, if you weren't effing up, it wouldn't be an attack." Like, and so this
Hmm.
was just terms of like like kind of the relationship kind of in housing, right? Like he's living in the
Yeah.
house with, and he's like, "Yeah, we like try to hold somebody accountable." And he's like, "Dude, you guys are always like attacking me about this." And Hunter's like, "Do the thing. That's not like I'm holding you accountable, dude. This
It's a
isn't an
fact.
attack."
It's actually
Yeah.
not an attack. It's a
Absolutely.
fact.
Yeah, and then Hunter actually said to me, he's like, "Dude, like, I'll be the villain in your story that you're telling yourself. I don't really care, but just do the dishes." Like, it was just
Oh,
this, like, amazing kind of, like,
I love
if
that.
you need a villain for your story, like, cool, I'll be the
If you
villain.
need a narrative, I'll
Yeah,
be it. But
yeah.
Yeah.
get the done, please.
Exactly. Yeah,
Oh my
absolutely.
gosh.
So,
Yes.
I really and again, it's not this idea about, like, holding our kids accountable, I think is so much more important than some of these, like, artificial milestones and markers of success that are external, right?
Do
That
you
are
know that
external.
some of them make a TikTok video
Yeah.
and they only have their friends following and then send a message for all of them to go comment on the TikTok video
Yeah.
and leave multiple comments? And I'm
Yeah.
like, what? And they're like, yeah, you'll get a text being like, hey, go comment and like
Yeah.
my post. And I'm like, what is like,
Yeah.
wow, that is,
Yeah.
if you don't need like validation at its finest, that you have to
Yeah.
text your friends
Yeah.
to go leave you multiple comments. I'm like, oh dear me, rather
Yeah.
than hanging out with your friend and just enjoying them.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
wild, the
Yeah.
validation piece right
Yeah.
now.
100%. Well, my dear, I literally could talk to you for days and I'm
I
so
know.
mindful
Same.
of your time. So, the question that I just wanted to kind of leave, just a kind of a quick grab and go question. Is there like a parenting, like, do you have a favorite parenting tip or piece of information, any age or stage? Do you have like one little gem that you're like, oh, if I get an opportunity, I love to leave this for parents and guardians and supporters? Again, any age or
You
stage,
know,
do you have
it's
any favorites?
you actually. It's actually
Oh,
you and your story of like resilience and mindset, like just how you, what I think what your mom told you over and over again, like the script you said that
yeah.
she said out
Yeah.
loud came in the most, like it's the way she lived
Yes.
that transferred down to you.
Yeah.
And I think that I try to, you know, be the script in their heads versus teaching them lessons. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be their script. I want to talk about them how I want them to see themselves. I want them to hear how I talk about them, because your story is like really an ultimate experiment of
Yeah.
survival.
Yes.
And like, there's no more proof in what happened to you. And it's like, you can't teach it, you have to live it. It's like, you can't tell them just once, you have to live as an example for who you want them to be, for it to transfer. Like, it kind of is osmosis in a
Yeah.
really weird way,
It is.
because your mom gave you that via conversation, a
Yeah.
chronic conversation and morals and values in your life,
Yeah.
right? So I always, like, your story will stick with me forever in terms of resilience and like just an outlook, and really how you move through life, because you can't teach it. Like, you cannot teach mindset. You kind of have to live it and embrace it. And I've never seen it more evident in my life than like right currently now, but it definitely is something you have to dig deep for, and you have it or you don't, and your parents either pass it on or
Mm.
don't. And if you are a chronic victim, your kids will be a victim.
Yeah.
If you are chronically negative, they will be chronically negative. Like, it is such a, like, you got to live it for them to be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and mine is like always been so simple, but I say it to myself all the time, and I have been doing this. Maybe I didn't know in maybe like the first couple of years, but when I say to myself, like, in my head, like, don't sweat the small stuff, and it
Yes.
seems so simple, but it's like, for the first couple of years I sweat all the small stuff,
All the time.
and I realized with experience that, like, where to put the energy
Yes.
and what actually matters, and that and your kids will really notice that. If it's
Yeah.
like, like, Kat would say, like, to her kids, or like, uh right now, like, what level problem is this,
Yeah.
like, out of 10?
1 to 10.
And
Yeah.
because, like, we always say, like, not to call out our husbands, but like, if a Costco sized pickle jar
Yeah.
smashes
Yeah.
on the floor, like, that's shitty.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's really not. Nobody
Yeah.
got hurt. Nobody
Yeah.
tripped on the glass. Everybody's okay. It's annoying, but
Yeah.
it's not the worst thing to ever happen. We actually
Yeah.
said once, like, that would be a really good dating tip, like
Just
on The
yeah.
Bachelor, to
Yeah.
see, like, how does he react when
Or she
yeah,
react.
or she
Yes.
react when the Costco
Yeah.
sized jar of pickles, it
Pickle.
happened.
Absolutely.
Happens. What's your reaction? Because
Yeah.
that's going to be a good example of, like, the natural reaction of, like, a lot of things that happen in life that aren't that big of a deal, like
Yeah.
smashing the Thule.
I'm like a 10, 10 or 1. What's
Yeah.
your 10? That's got to be the worst ever.
Yeah.
You're actually, you know, you're a 10 right now,
Yeah.
when this is really a 1 problem.
Yeah.
So,
Because those are the kind of, like, reactions that they'll take with them forever, if they don't realize, like, what's really bad right now and
Yeah.
what's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love that, both of those pieces, and, in our house when Ava was little, 'cause, she's our little Hellcat, we used to describe her in terms of, like, the hurricane, like,
Yeah.
what is the kind of caliber of this hurricane? Or, like, we're
Yeah.
talking like a stage 5? Are we at, like, stage
Yeah.
2? Like, we used
Yeah.
to use the hurricane, and again, there would be times where I'd say to the boys, I'm like, "Dude, it's like a kinda like a class 3, like, we got a class 3 hurricane, name it
Yeah.
whatever you want, just give her a little bit of space," and the boys
Mhm.
they would learn,
Mhm.
and again, I say this, and Ava and I have such a great connection and I celebrate her. And she was also like got 80% of my parenting energy for a season, right? And the boys
Yeah.
had 20%, they got the leftovers for a season. And, you figure it out, you figure out how to navigate it. And again, having just that little bit of a barometer to be like, what class of hurricane are we walking into? Or
Mhm.
there'd be times when I would walk into the room and say, I am not in a good, like, I am not okay, right? Like, I just
Mhm.
want you to know this is not the time to ask for anything. This is not
Yeah.
the time because, like, and I would say, I'm not resourced right now to be the mom that I want to be. So could you
Mhm.
just give me a wide berth? And they would be like, yeah. I'd be like, cool. Right. And then I would, versus again, making poor choices because I didn't let them know that I wasn't resourced to be able
Right.
to show up
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
them. So it goes both ways, right? It can go both ways. And
Yes.
yeah. And just as that notion of your idea about dropping the pickle jar, I recently was working with senior leaders and they're like, Robyne, what's a good behavioral question I can ask this person to see if they're a good leader? I'm like, dude, take them to an escape room. Like, I like literally put them in an escape room and just see what they do. Like, see, do they boss people around? Do they take charge? Do they like cower? Like I think we need to
Do
get
they
into like,
laugh? What do
yes,
they do?
absolutely, absolutely. Do they say like, do you find out that they were a Boy Scout and they are like MacGyvering their way? Like again, using real world
Yeah.
scenarios versus this hypothetical and theoretical, I think could probably save us so much time and energy.
I just took my family to an escape room.
It's a treat.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see how everyone behaves.
Yeah, it is, right? Because it's real, right? Like you
Mhm.
are, even though it's a simulation, like you're actually in that situation. And I think, yeah, anyway,
Mhm.
again, women, I could talk to you for days. Thank you so much for spending time. I do hope this is one of many times that we can invite you to come back. You have so much wisdom and just your approachability. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And please, please keep shining bright because you are guiding so many of us as we think about what's next. So thank
Back
you.
at you,
Aw,
obviously,
aw,
shining,
yay.
type of shining
Shining
stars with
bright like a
you.
diamond.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
for having us.
Thank you. Thank you. Take good care. Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.